In this video, I'm going to be modifying the throttle body throttle stop of my 2021 KTM 300 TPI to allow easy idle adjustment and tuning. If you watch the recent videos I've made about my 2021 KTM 300 TPI, you'll know that initially I was a little bit disappointed with the power. It felt very mild. But following that, I made a series of modifications, including adding an RK-Tech head, a Get ECU race kit, and most recently I installed the red power valve spring and richened up the fueling. And all of those together have resulted in a bike that's much more fun to ride. And in my last video I commented that it feels really good, but the idle does need to come up. It's too low. So the method to adjust the idle speed in the KTM owner's manual, as shown here, is to adjust the screw marked number 1 on the throttle body. By adjusting it in, it decreases the idle speed, and adjusting it out, it increases the idle speed. KTM call this the idle speed adjusting screw. What it actually does is controls the amount of air which can bypass the throttle body butterfly, and by allowing more air through the passageway, it leans out the mixture at idle and increases the idle speed. And if you screw the screw in, it decreases the amount of air which can bypass the butterfly, making it richer, and decreases the idle speed. By doing this, you are adjusting the mixture, and one issue can be that to achieve a good idle, you have to really lean the idle out, which impacts the torque off idle. A popular and common modification to allow greater idle adjustment range and tuning is to remove the stock throttle body throttle stop, which is Loctited in, and to replace it with an adjustable throttle stop. So that's what I'm going to be doing in this video. Okay, so to perform the mod you need to remove the throttle body from the bike, and to do that you need to raise the subframe up. So I've already removed the silencer, I've removed the lower subframe bolts, and I've loosened the top subframe bolts. So the method I'm using to remove the throttle body is I've loosened both of the hose clamps, both the front one and rear one, and then lifted up on the subframe, and the throttle body came out of the reed valve boot. And then to remove it from the airbox boot, it's actually quite tricky. So I'm pulling down on the throttle body, and I actually use a screwdriver to pry it a little bit, and then it popped out. So just take your time and make sure you don't damage the throttle position sensor or anything else. Okay, so I've removed the oil hose, and now I'm removing the throttle cables. So I just loosen these, and then you can carefully remove the cable. So on the bench you can more clearly see the throttle body stop screw, which is here. From the factory it's thread locked in place, so it's not adjustable, and it stops the throttle in this position. So you can see there, if I turn it round, you can see the butterfly open and close. By removing the factory screw, and I'm going to be using this screw instead with a spring to hold it in place, you can make it adjustable. So by screwing it in, you can increase the idle, and out it decreases the idle by opening or closing the throttle. And by doing this, this is linked to the throttle position sensor on the other side, and it not only increases the amount of air, it also increases the fuel. And if you make a large adjustment, it can be an issue on the bike if you can't recalibrate the throttle position sensor. So one advantage of using an ECU like the Get is you can easily recalibrate the TPS setting. So before working on the throttle body and modifying it, it's a very good idea to measure the factory settings as a reference. So I measured the throttle stop gap as 4.75 millimeters, and the air screw is 2 3/4 turns out from full in. The factory throttle stop screw is held in place with high strength Loctite, so you have to heat the Loctite to remove the screw. And you want to be careful that you don't heat the plastic part of the cam, or you may damage it. So it's best to heat from the underside and melt the Loctite, and then carefully remove the screw. So I've heard conflicting reports about what bit is required to remove the screw. I've had a careful look at mine, and it looks like it's an Allen head, and it's 2.5 millimeters. So mine is not Torx. And to remove the factory screw, I'm using this long Allen bit. It's 2.5 millimeters. I checked the fit, it fits very nicely. You want to be very careful that you select a bit that does fit well and engages fully into the screw, or you can strip it out very easily. And to heat the area of the throttle body just here, I'm going to use MAP gas, which should work well. And I can see it boiling there, so I'm going to try that right now. Yep, and it's unscrewing very easily. So with MAP gas, it takes a few seconds. Do not be tempted to try and remove it when the thread lock is not hot. You can very easily damage the screw, and then it'd be a real pain to get out. And note I'm using a glove to hold the throttle body. And also note the screw is going to be very hot, so don't touch it with your fingers. Okay, so I just used the tab to clean out the internal thread, and the size is M5 and the pitch is 0.08. So make sure you get the right size. You can use a tap or a thread chaser if you have that. And I've installed the new screw, and you can see I've set the gap to what it was previously. And you can see, I think the screw length, so this is 50 millimeter M5, and the spring size is just about perfect for this application. So as I say, I put the dimensions in the description of the video. And the air screw setting, I'm going to test various settings, but I'm going to start my testing with it out one turn and adjust the throttle in this position and see how it runs. And then I'll test other settings as well. And one thing to note is that you do need to notch the cover in this area so it fits around the screw. I drilled a hole first and then cut the remaining tab with some cutters and then filed it to size. Only takes a couple of minutes. So that's the modification complete. I'm now able to use an M4 Allen to make idle adjustments, or I can actually do it by hand. It's a little bit stiff, but it is possible. If you intend to do lots of adjustments, you can get quick adjusters, so that might be something you want to look into. I'm going to install it on the bike. One thing to note is that you must bleed air out of the oil hose. So you use the dongle and follow the instructions in the owner's manual to do that. Do not be tempted just to put the hose on and run it. If it's got air in, you might well not get oil injected into the throttle body. So make sure you do that properly. I'm going to be testing the idle tomorrow on the trail when the bike is up to temperature, making adjustments and also checking the effect of the air screw as well. So today's my first ride with the idle mod, and initially I had the air screw out one turn and I set the idle and it was running okay. It didn't really feel as strong as it could be off the bottom, so I adjusted it to half a turn out, and it's feeling much better like this, and I'm getting good torque off the bottom. Makes it really easy to lift the front wheel and also lug, no problem at all. So you can just start from nothing and it pulls hard off the bottom and smoothly as well, no hesitation at all. So I'm really enjoying it right now, and I'll carry on with this setting. Well like that. It's definitely pulling better off the bottom now with the idle adjusted. So this is how the bike is idling now. I don't like the idle too high, but I do like it so it doesn't stall easily. Response off the bottom felt nice and torquey coming up through the rocks. Certainly made it a lot easier. Focus more on the riding and not trying to rev the bike. I much prefer a nice torquey feeling off the bottom, slightly rich. If it's lean off the bottom, it tends to lack torque, and then you have to rev more and lose traction. So I prefer a slightly rich setting and have that extra bit of torque off the bottom. It makes it a lot easier. Better. It's a good challenge. Come back for sure.